Hello, everyone. This is a new edition of Coffee with Guillem, but a special one. And it is a special one because I read an article on the Sunday Times by the chief writer of the Sunday Times, which is Jonathan Northcroft, who's next to me in here. And I thought, wow. And I did one of those things that I normally don't do, read it again. And then I did something else. I passed it on. And then I wanted the opinion of people. So when something like that happens, it's a great excuse to talk to Jonathan and go back to it and discover what's behind the story, why it has been written, and the reaction to it. So, Jonathan, first of all, hello.
Hi, Guillem. Thanks for the build-up. I mean, look, sometimes you write articles that are very much in the moment, but sometimes you write things that have been brewing in your mind and maybe filtering into your mind as well through conversations you've been having. Um, and yeah, look, the piece I wrote was I think the culmination of maybe a couple of years of watching football with this nagging sense at the back of my mind that I've seen this game before. This is all getting predictable. Um, I am looking for something different here. I'm looking for something new. I'm looking for something maybe that I used to see in the game. And what I particularly wanted to delve into is why football matches are beginning to look the same, why teams are beginning to look the same, why the profile of squads is beginning to look the same. And there's a number of things that come into that. There's the there's the physical. I think if you look at footballers, same body shape, almost the same physical output, never get tired, run at a particular speed. A generation of uniform athletes. I think a disappearance of individuality from the pitch, from players taking individual autonomy, from players expressing themselves in the ways. And I started my article with that reference point, that modern reference point of individuality, Ronaldinho. Who so many players, as I wrote, so many modern players I speak to, if you ask them who their hero is, they'll say Ronaldinho. And then you see them on the pitch and they don't play anything like Ronaldinho. But I think the biggest thing, I guess, that I've been seeing for a long time on pitches, and I'd be really interested to know if it's what you see as well, Guillem, is it's the same shapes, it's the same patterns, it's teams working to a formula where they get the ball and we're going to build up with, might be three, might be two, but it's let's say build up with three, with two in midfield and then five strung across the front line, and the ball being worked in particular predictable ways, and players taking one or two touches but no more, and staying in their set positions, and almost having a menu of things that are allowed to do, the way they can put the ball in the box, slide it down the side, cut it back, don't play an early cross, play a cross at the right time when everyone's in the right position. I'm just seeing it again and again and again, and seeing good teams do it, seeing bad teams do it, but just seeing this uniformity. And that was a piece I wrote. Is football all starting to look the same? I think it's looking like I feel we need to refresh.
So, you've seen the graphic of the article as you were listening to me earlier on, but the article is titled How Pep Guardiola and Data Destroyed Game's Beautiful Variety, which already just takes your attention. What?
Yeah.
The subtitle, we call it the undertitle underneath. It says, "Ever felt like the Premier League clubs now all play the same? You might be right. As the Times data team reveal the stats behind top flight's growing and underwhelming uniformity." Now, there's so much to pick from this. But first of all, you've been feeling this for months, for years. But what was getting to you, you've given me your reaction to it. You felt underwhelmed by it. But the reaction you were getting in the world of football was also the same, that we've got to do this because everybody's doing it, but we're really not enjoying it. There was a bit of that, perhaps?
Yeah. I mean, a couple of things there. First of all, I didn't mention Pep in my opening explanation because I was trying to give you my starting point to the article and what I've been feeling and what I wanted to explore. And what the article tried to do is then discuss the reasons for that. And I think data is one thing, and maybe we can get into that. But I think when I talk about patterns and shapes, it's Pep Guardiola. And what I do want to explain to people here is this is not an attack on Pep Guardiola. Pep Guardiola is probably the best coach we've ever seen. He is the most successful coach we've ever seen. And he's got, as we know, a formula for playing. What I'm seeing is a whole load of people copying Pep Guardiola, leading to an orthodoxy, a hegemony of ideas. And those concepts I talked about, the way balls have to be delivered into the box, the positions of players on the pitch, it comes from his, and apologies in advance for my pronunciation, game, that Juego de Position. How's that? I'm giving
Juego de posesión. Yeah, that's correct.
giving a French position at the end. Anyway, never mind. So the reaction was really interesting because I had managers and coaches coming and saying, yeah, we feel this too. We feel that there's a way now that we're expected to set up teams and play, and that you get criticised if you depart from that. And, we're looking for something new as well. Now, I one message I got was from quite a young manager. One message I got was from a middle-aged manager, someone of my generation. And that's interesting. It's I think there's a consciousness in the coaching world that, God, there is a sort of thing that we're supposed to stick to here. And maybe the truth of it is that everyone's just looking for the wheel to turn and the cycle to change and for something new to come along. What that is, I'm not sure. And maybe we need the next super coach to show us.
Yeah, that's what tends to happen. A coach that is allowed to be given very good players and they win a lot and they create a trend. That's how football has gone. But I think it'll be a good exercise to go back to see why Pep Guardiola got there and then also why others have followed. So Pep Guardiola follows the Johan Cruyff ideal of spectacle, domination, being protagonist on the pitch. But Johan Cruyff didn't leave anything in writing, nothing. There was no methodology behind it, right? There was trainings that, if you look at them now, they weren't great. But he had the genius to think constantly, why not? Why not try this thing? Why not put a centre back as a centre forward or whatever it was? After that, Van Gaal comes into Barcelona and he puts methodology and converts what Johan Cruyff have, the philosophy of Johan Cruyff, into exercises and into a style that has to do with juego posicional, with the roles in every part of the pitch. Pep Guardiola is, we keep saying Johan Cruyff's son, but he's also Van Gaal's son. So he comes in, takes this combination into another level and in winning sides, and he wins a lot. And of course, it was at a time where football was Porto, Chelsea, physical, not very attractive. It blows our minds because we also got the combination of, of Busquets, Xavi, Iniesta, Messi. So it's the perfect storm. Why people follow that? That this has to do with these coaches, especially the younger ones, who were blown away by Barcelona and start reading all the books and want to have a bit of that and create that if they can as well. I've always felt that by reading a book or two or three, Martí Perarnaus and Lou Martín, my books, you don't get to the essence of it, number one. And do you really, really believe in it? Or are you trying to copy? And I felt that for a long while, that is what Pep Guardiola is doing has to do with his essence. He was brought up in a culture of why nots, with Ferran Adrià, the chef of El Bulli, with Gaudí all over us, the architect that broke all the rules, with Johan Cruyff who breaks all the rules. That's his essence. So he applies that to his football. What we're seeing is a lot of coaches taking what they read and having followed some training sessions and trying to apply it, and they don't really believe in it. So we have to differentiate, which you do in the article anyway, what Pep Guardiola has done, which we're obviously not criticizing at all, how he has created a trend, logical because he won, and how those that follow that trend are actually killing it, making it boring,
Yeah.
just doing copy paste. There's two coaches in my eyes that believe in that essence, have that essence, and taking that football into a very exciting football, because it's possible to take it that way. Continue that branch. Go after Pep Guardiola, and it's De Zerbi and Enzo Maresca. Those are two managers that really know what it is about, because they lived it, because they believe in it, because they're Latins, because all of that, and taking it forward. So what you describe and the tiredness that seems to be around is how badly the legacy of Guardiola has been taken. He's blamed for it because he's the father of it, if you like, but it's the copycatting that we actually criticizing here. Is that right?
I think so. I mean, it's really interesting hearing that, and it ties in with one thing that I suppose I've been thinking about, which is what next, and maybe the next thing what isn't going to be a rejection of this, but it is going to be a proper development of it, and it may well be by the likes of De Zerbi and Maresca and others. In fact, it's logical. I think positional play it's not going to disappear. It probably is going to take its place, you'd hope, in the structure of coaching going forward. Why would you throw out all those ideas? But it needs to be
And
developed.
all the players that have been
And all,
educated that way.
yeah. Um, I mean, it's interesting. Van Gaal, I think Cruyff called him militaristic, didn't he? He didn't like this sort of uber codifying of his ideas. He didn't like them being kind of broken down and written as a set of military rules as he saw it by Van Gaal. And that is, I think, what we're seeing by certain coaches now, where it is just, but Pep is more likely to innovate within his own system than many coaches are, who are just trying to follow what he was doing
Yeah.
so long ago.
Let me take the question, what next, and see, because this will be for another article, obviously, but it's the kind of thing that came into my head reading yours. What next? So if you follow the school of thought of that's prominent in France, for instance, there is four football gets divided into four parts. No, the building from the back,
Yeah,
the ball that gets into the middle, the decision before the last decision, if you like, in the last third, and the final decision, the organized attack. So Pep Guardiola took us to a new way, stealing, as he says, stealing from everywhere, took us to a new way to build from the back, where Valdez said, I'm not going to pass the ball to the centre backs. They don't want it. It's like, you have to do it, because that was the beginning of everything. Something he saw in Mexico, centre backs coming to both sides of the box and receiving the ball and building from there to create space some other part of the pitch. He taught us a million ways of doing that, and others have created new ones. Then he took the ball to the middle, and he built an attack using the midfielders with a lot of passing, a lot of control. For him, his ideal when he was at Barcelona was 15 minutes of passing before you actually attack. That's changed through the transitioning in
yeah,
Germany, of course, in
those guys.
England as well. But he gave us that as well for people to develop. He also developed how to get the ball to the edge of the box. And then he got old, tired, uh, whatever you want to call it, and thought, you know what? Right, I'm going to get centre backs that defend, four of them if necessary, and a centre forward that scores. And somebody else can do the what next, which is the organized attack. Organized attack means that when you take the decision, you should know what you're doing, when you're doing it, with your eyes closed, um, creating robots like he has
Sure.
been in other parts of the pitch, but for the last decision, for the shoot. And there's only, again, 2-3 managers that are working on the developing of the attack, not just by having 5 ways of doing it, but 20. Mikel Arteta, De Zerbi, Enzo Maresca. That's the what next. The what next is organized attack in the way that we believe this philosophy to be.
You might be right. I kind of hope it's not, though, because I think what I would like, and I'm no coach, but I think it has to be deorganized, the attack. I think that, and this gets to, I think, one of my starting points in the article is this loss of individualism and this loss of autonomy for gifted players. I get that you need team structure. I like team structure, but I think when it comes to the attacking part of the game, especially at the top of the pitch,
But you get 99.9% of the coaches giving freedom to the attackers already. You already got that.
depends what freedom it is, though, because I think because I wrote a piece this week about Jack Grealish and the narrowing of his role, and I mean, it seems to me that this is quite a different edition of a Guardiola team than we've seen before. It might be because, as you say, he's now done his innovating and he's letting things be. But I think at the top of the pitch, there's agency's been taken away from players. I think autonomy's been taken away from players. Where in the case of Grealish, for example, or a winger, you see Doku's doing it now. You see Martinelli's doing it in Arteta's team, and I could go down the teams, but there's they get the ball, and there's a particular area that they're allowed to work in, and there's a particular set of things they're allowed to do, and they follow it, and there's no room for combining with other players in a way that isn't part of the plan. There's no room for I've beaten one man. I think I might beat a second man now, because that's not in the formula. And I do wonder if, on top of the structure, the future is going to be giving back some of the decision making to the really gifted players. In the way that, I mean, someone like Messi was so good that you couldn't take his decision making away. You know, Pep recognised that genius. Go and do it. He gave him an area to play in, sure, but he gave him autonomy as well. And I think that's what I miss. That's what I think's been lost, is that level of expression. It is that sort of that X factor that we're allowed. We want to see some players do. You know, I mean, I think that Mo Salah's having an amazing season, but it's not the most watchable Mo Salah season. Arne Slot's a bit of a Pep disciple, and I love how Mo Salah's added the assists to his game, and he's so intelligent now. But I kind of miss the 2018 Mo Salah. And you might just tell me he's 6 years older, but I miss the guy that would give the ball away, but he would do something just off the cuff with it as well.
I don't think it's possible to get those kind of players, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But football is attack and defense now is interlinked.
Interlinked, yeah.
You react to the way you attack because of the way you've been defended, and they've been defended now so structurally and logically as well. Everybody knows how to set up defensively, more or less, in different formations, that the only way to beat it, it's collectively to organize the attack. If you leave it to one player to do that, forget it, it's not going to happen. Only Messi, and there's only one Messi, and there's no Messis around. So for players to be given the kind of freedom that you want, that you've seen in the past in Ronaldinho, you have to go back 25 years. Because right now the football is going in a different direction. But if instead of Jack Grealish be given 5 instructions, he gets 30, you get more creativity within a limit, of course. But then there's another way of understanding football, which I think that's probably where you and me will clash in terms of what's beautiful. Because you obviously, after all, you go into a football match to see Ronaldinho because it's beautiful. And you want to see that again. And it's logical. For me, a collective move that starts in one side and finishes in the other and involves 8 players and a movement, and 2 don't touch the ball, but the other ones do, and then they deceive the rival by believing that you have to pressure us there, but then attacking the other way. That to me is beautiful. And that is done that way, in the way that football is done now.
I don't necessarily disagree with that, game, but it's only beautiful if you haven't seen it 100 times. If you've seen it 100 times, that's where I'm coming from. I think it's losing its beauty.
Because it's the copycats.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you have 30 ways of attacking instead of 5, because the copycats can only do the 5, because Pep Guardiola's only done 5, say, I'm just using a number. But if instead you see Chelsea trying to beat Brentford yesterday, for instance, and you see the fact that is that to beat a team is not just one action that a player will beat another. You have to just go at it for 90 minutes to tie them up, to open up, to create overloads, to run into space, a lot of things. And it was beautiful. It was
Yeah.
great. And you've never seen that game,
No,
but
and
you've seen defending this deep, and you've seen another one trying to break it up. And I believe if you educate the eye to want to see those things, then you enjoy it. But you will not get Ronaldinho because it's not needed anymore.
well, no, but you get Cole Palmer, and I agree. I love what Chelsea are doing at the moment, and I think this is where we might start to meet in the middle a little bit. That what Maresca is doing is he's got a structure, but he's allowing within it a little bit more, I think, fluidity and combination play and improvisation. I mean, Palmer
How
improvises.
about if I tell you, because you're going to go on Palma, how about if I tell you that he's giving him less freedom than he had last season? He's giving him
Um,
less, no more.
well, are you talking about positional freedom? But because that might be the case. That might be the
Yeah.
case. But on the ball freedom, maybe Cole Palmer's just not listening. But he will take the extra touch. He will dribble. He's unpredictable. He's still unpredictable. I can see that he's playing in a much tighter area, but I like the autonomy he's still given. And then in someone like Jackson, you've got, and maybe it's just his nature as a footballer, he doesn't always function in a predictable way. And as I say, maybe that's just his character on the pitch. But I like that. He doesn't do a predictable thing.
We may be getting somewhere where we will agree. Because if you have a Cole Palmer player, you have the structure to work for him, because you shouldn't forget, as Enzo doesn't, that people come to see good football, and also good footballers actually allow you to win more games. So you shouldn't limit that. And he doesn't, because of the reasons we said earlier. He is a pupil of Pep Guardiola, a proper one, that believes in the essence of what's happening, because it's his own essence. Copycat managers, perhaps the rest, if you like, they will want the structure to succeed, because they may not be comfortable enough to see too much freedom, because they wouldn't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
So to find that beauty that you're looking for, the new Ronaldinhos, you have to go to the 3 or 4 managers that are trying to do that. I don't know if there is any more, but I cannot see any more than
No,
them that I
no.
mentioned.
I think Slot's very interesting because he's not. He's not entirely. I think Guardiola's his biggest influence, but it's not his only influence. And he's got a mix. He will go short and long in the same game. He'll change the rhythm of Liverpool's play. The tempo will change. He's still allowing someone like Alexander-Arnold, who's got a certain natural creativity in his thinking, a bit, still freedoms. So we are seeing really good coaches taking these ideas and doing something with them. We're seeing, as you say, Guillem, we're seeing bad ones, and we're seeing bad ones fail, aren't we? I mean, I'm not going to, without naming names, a couple of them have gone recently. We're seeing bad ones fail with these ideas because they don't have the flexibility. I would like to see something else as well. Challenge this. And I don't know if it is challengeable. I do take your point about structure because, of course, what happens when you lose the ball and the science that Pep's introduced, the engineering that he's introduced is you lose the ball and, of course, you're in the ideal structure to win it back and defend it. And that's the ultimate genius of this, and that's why it's so difficult to imagine as a non-coach the next way of playing, because you do think, well, yeah, what happens when Ronaldinho loses the ball against a modern pressing team that just devours the loose ball? And I don't know. That's not for me. I've been reading about people like Diniz in Brazil, who didn't succeed at national team level but has done well in the Brazilian league, and I'm sure you're familiar with the idea of relationism. I need to see it perfected and I need to see it work. But the idea of allowing the players to create the structure, which seems quite utopian, Don't know if it can work, but yeah, I mean, maybe the point is, to go back to where we started, we need to see a brilliant coach with a brilliant team who's just going to show us something we haven't thought of, because that's how innovation works in this world, isn't it? That's it.
Yeah.
It's one day somebody wakes up and invents something we hadn't thought of, or perfects something in a way that we hadn't thought it would be perfected.
Let's go to the present and to Pep Guardiola, and what you make of his situation now, where you point at the reasons for what's happening.
Yeah, I said a couple of weeks ago on that I think we have to get used to this. Like, we're going to need to get used to this for this season. I think this is the reality of Manchester City. They are badly in need of refreshing. They're a team at the end of the line. They are. It's a broken machine, isn't it? It's a broken machine. The parts have got too old. Psychologically, some of the players aren't there at the moment, and I likened it to that Klopp season where Van Dijk gets injured and the team just falls apart. And there are injuries, and obviously Rodri is the catalyst for all of this. You know, the event that's sort of started this chain of events. But Rodri's not responsible for Ilkay Gundogan being 34. Rodri's not the reason that Kevin De Bruyne can't run like he used to, or that Kyle Walker hasn't worked out that he's no longer 25 and keeps showing people down the line, or that, you know, people like Phil Foden and Bernardo Silva, the best players in the team, are in a bit of a psychological trough and need someone to lead them out of it. I think that this happens to everyone. It happened to Fergie. I remember reporting on Manchester United in 2005, the season where he didn't even get out of the group stage of the Champions League, where Mourinho and Benitez just seemed to be so far taking Liverpool and Chelsea ahead. Arsenal was still really good, and you thought, right, this is it. Man United are at the end of the line here, and 3 years later he's winning the Champions League again because he rebuilt and he refreshed and he got a new team. And I think that's where City are now. They need to churn this team, and it's fascinating. As a lot of people have been saying, it's fascinating to see Guardiola in this position because he hasn't been put in this position before. And I don't think it's him that's going to stop this succeeding if they are going to churn. I wonder about the structure at City. It's a big challenge for the new sporting director coming in to help him, and it's a challenge for the club. But I can't see a way out of this with the current squad. They're not going to keep losing 9 games out of 11. It's a blip in those terms. They will come back to some kind of form, but they ain't winning anything this year unless it's the FA Cup.
I've used a lot of your time already, and Jonathan, I just want to thank you for the article and for having a third part of the article as it will be in a football match, and then discussing it all after it was been published. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Guillem. Really enjoyed that. Thank you.